Welcome to the deep dive. If you're feeling like the digital world has, I don't know, just hit some kind of critical mass, you are absolutely right.
You really are.
We have crossed some massive, just history-making thresholds recently. Globally, the population of internet users has officially passed 6 billion.
6.04 billion people online, according to the latest data. I mean, that's a 73.2% global penetration rate. It's incredible.
And that adoption is not just about getting online anymore, is it? The way we engage has fundamentally changed.
Oh, completely. Social media usage has become what you could call a statistical supermajority. We're looking at 5.66 billion user identities globally.
Wow.
And when you do the math on that, that's 68.7% of the world's total population using social media
Sure.
every single month.
That is just immense record-breaking growth. But here's the real mission for this deep dive, because the sources we've looked at, they show that 2026 is less about just reaching these huge numbers and more about convergence and, well, hard deadlines. The digital world has reached a point where this historic explosive adoption meets critical, non-negotiable governance.
Exactly. We're synthesizing three critical areas that are all coming to a head at the same time, and they really define the digital landscape you're operating in now.
Okay, what are they?
First, you have the final, very difficult push for physical connectivity. Reaching the truly remote populations with new tech like low Earth orbit or LEO satellites.
Okay.
Second, we have to confront the persistent, really stubborn socioeconomic crisis of the digital divide that remains, even where you have the infrastructure.
And the third?
And finally, the massive transition of global AI and content regulation. It's moving from these theoretical proposals to mandatory hard compliance deadlines in basically every major global market.
Okay, let's unpack this then. What does this confluence of, rapid growth, technological breakthroughs, and strict governance actually mean for you, the digitally connected person who is now part of that 6 billion user base? Let's maybe start with the immense progress in physical access. We often talk about the challenges, but it's worth recognizing the success here. Global 5G coverage has now reached 84% of populations.
It's a phenomenal infrastructure build-out. It really is.
Right.
But, and this is the sobering statistic that kind of undercuts that success, despite all that coverage, 2.2 billion people worldwide still remain stubbornly offline.
So the problem has shifted.
The battle for connectivity has fundamentally shifted, yeah. It's no longer about putting up towers in dense urban centers where the ROI is easy.
Right.
It's about reaching the truly underserved in, say, deeply rural areas, dense forests, or difficult mountainous terrain. This is the last mile problem in its most expensive form.
And the primary multi-billion-dollar technological solution for this last mile problem seems to be, well, launching it all into orbit.
Yes, specifically low Earth orbit, or LEO, satellites. This is moving the internet from the ground to the sky.
Literally.
That's right. And these mega constellations are reaching critical mass, which makes them economically viable for the first time. SpaceX's Starlink, for instance, already has over 6,750 satellites up there.
And they're not alone in this.
Not at all. To show you the global race, Amazon's competitor, Project Kuiper, is accelerating rapidly. It intends to launch half of its planned 3,236 satellites by the end of July 2026.
So this isn't just a few satellites.
No, this is a permanent digital shield being built around the Earth.
Okay, let's talk performance, because it's not just about having a signal, it's about quality. We hear broadband thrown around all the time, but the FCC's minimum definition for what that actually means keeps rising.
It's now 100 millipedes download and 20 millipedes upload.
Which is pretty fast.
It is, and this is important because LEO satellites are proving competitive with traditional fiber and cable, especially for rural users who have historically been stuck with, slow DSL or those really costly, high-latency geostationary satellites.
The old satellite internet.
Exactly. LEO solutions, because they're closer to Earth, they offer much lower latency and really competitive speeds. We're talking anywhere from 25 up to 270 millipedes for downloads.
And the uploads.
5 to 25 millipedes for uploads. So they are officially meeting the modern definition of broadband.
That's powerful tech for remote communities.
Yeah.
But, and this is where I have to challenge the premise a bit, if the goal is to connect the underserved and close the digital divide, how can a high-tech satellite solution justify the current price point?
That is the core paradox of LEO connectivity. It solves the physical barrier, but it creates a very high economic barrier.
How high are we talking?
Well, for example, a standard Starlink kit, that's the terminal, the router, the whole setup, it's $349 just for the equipment.
And then the monthly bill on top of that.
And the monthly service cost is typically $120.
$120 a month. That is simply unaffordable for the exact communities that this infrastructure is supposed to be helping. Doesn't that high price point actively defeat the goal of universal access?
It absolutely creates a new tier of digital privilege. Even their slightly cheaper option, the residential light plan, which is $80 a month,
Okay.
it comes with a major caveat. It's deprioritized during peak hours, so even if you can afford the basic service, you're likely facing slower speeds right when everyone else is trying to use the network.
So after work, in the evening.
Exactly. The technology is available and it's capable, but accessibility is not solely a technical problem. It is fundamentally an economic one.
And as we're just navigating this economic barrier in the current 5G and LEO environment, the technology road is already leading us to 6G. That feels a little premature.
It's not so much premature as it is strategic.
How so?
Well, commercial deployment is still years away, yes, but the development roadmaps are taking shape now. There's an evolutionary 6G phase projected for 2029 through 2034.
So they're laying the groundwork.
Companies and nations are locking in the standards now because this is a race for global digital leadership. We are talking about future applications that fundamentally exceed what 5G can do.
Like what?
Things like truly immersive experiences, real-time holographic communication, and creating highly accurate real-time digital twins of, say, physical environments or infrastructure.
That's a critical point on strategy, because all the fiber and satellites in the world, they just don't matter if people can't actually afford or, know how to use them.
Exactly.
So let's take that economic challenge from LEO satellites and shift the conversation from just physical infrastructure to what you'd call meaningful access.
Right, emphasizing the four recognized dimensions of the digital divide: infrastructure, affordability, digital literacy or skills, and the subtler one, algorithmic inclusion.
Let's really hone in on affordability and how infrastructure spending alone just isn't solving the problem.
Okay, a great example is the Michigan case study. The state is investing nearly $1.5 billion.
$1.5 billion.
Yeah, a $920 million federal grant plus $550 million in provider matching funds. And this is to expand fiber optic lines by 31,000 miles to 200,000 homes.
That is a massive investment.
Yeah.
It's specifically aimed at solving that infrastructure gap.
It is. Yet the reality on the ground is stark. Michigan still has 730,000 households that face existing barriers.
Barriers related to what?
Related to cost, devices, or digital literacy, even where fast broadband is already physically available.
So hold on. The government pours $1.5 billion into cables, yet nearly 750,000 households are still locked out.
That proves that money alone can't fix this. It's the affordability trap.
What's the average bill there?
The average internet bill in the state is $65 per month. For a household already struggling economically, that $65 may as well be $6,500.
The infrastructure access is just nullified.
It is for those cost-sensitive segments, and that leads directly to the critical nature of the skills gap.
When we say skills gap, what are we talking about beyond just, knowing how to use email?
Well, digital literacy is the ability to use technology effectively and safely to accomplish critical life tasks. It is required to avoid being disadvantaged in, well, every area of modern life.
Give me an example.
Think about securing employment. So many remote work applications are entirely digital, or accessing essential services like telehealth consultations or even filing for state benefits.
If you can't navigate that world.
If you don't know how to reliably navigate the digital world, having 100 NEPs connectivity is irrelevant. You're still locked out of modern society.
And this digital exclusion, globally, it contributes heavily to massive socioeconomic inequality.
It really does, particularly concerning gender. Globally, women are 21% less likely than men to access the internet.
And that's not just a social issue.
No, it's a hard economic reality. Our sources confirm this has massive economic implications. Countries have lost an estimated $1 trillion in GDP.
$1 trillion.
$1 trillion, all due to the digital exclusion of women. That statistic is a clear message that digital inequality is fundamentally anti-growth, even for developed markets.
And that institutional disparity, the one that ensures offline inequalities get magnified online, that's present even in high-tech nations.
Absolutely. We see it in schools. In OECD countries, socioeconomically advantaged schools are significantly more likely to have principals who report having sufficient capacity.
Meaning what? Enough computers and training.
Exactly. Devices, training, and support to use digital tools for teaching and learning compared to disadvantaged schools. The cycle just perpetuates itself,
So those who start behind stay behind.
creating a self-reinforcing lack of digital fluency across
Yeah, it's a
generations.
powerful overview of the economic and social barriers. Okay, now we need to transition. We just talked about how digital literacy is required for essential services.
Right.
Imagine trying to navigate that essential digital world when it's suddenly governed by new, overlapping, and highly technical rules, like the EU AI Act or the Take ITE Down Act.
A whole new layer of complexity.
So let's turn to that growing regulatory complexity in 2026, where the digital frontier is becoming governed by multiple mandates and, again, these hard compliance deadlines.
And the detail here is key, because these are now mandatory compliance dates, not just proposals.
Okay, let's start in the U.S.
In the U.S., the Take ITE Down Act becomes fully effective on May 19, 2026. This federalizes the criminalization of publishing non-consensual intimate imagery, or NCII, and also digital forgeries, what most people call deepfakes.
And what are the resulting obligations for platforms? It sounds like a massive technical undertaking.
It is a colossal compliance lift. Covered online platforms, so social media sites, hosting platforms, and so on, they must establish a clear, accessible notice and removal system.
And how fast do they have to act?
They have to remove reported NCII as soon as possible, and certainly no later than 48 hours after getting a valid, verified request.
And there's more to it than just taking down one post.
Critically, yes.
Wow.
The law also requires platforms to make reasonable efforts to identify and remove identical copies of the content.
So removing identical copies suggests the platform can't just wait for the next complaint. They have to proactively scan and match content.
That's the part that forces them into adopting hash matching technology and proactive scanning systems. It's something platforms have resisted for years because of cost and privacy concerns.
But now they have no choice.
The 48-hour clock and the requirement to remove identical content means they must integrate these sophisticated detection tools into their infrastructure immediately.
And meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the European Union is finalizing what many people consider the global standard for AI regulation.
The EU AI Act. It reaches near full applicability for high-risk systems on August 2, 2026.
Define high-risk systems for us.
These are the AI tools that make consequential decisions about people's lives, the systems that decide if you get a job, if you qualify for a loan, or if critical safety infrastructure is operating correctly.
And what does compliance look like for those?
For these systems, it means mandatory risk assessment and mitigation systems, a rigorous requirement to use high-quality data sets to minimize bias, full traceability logging, and, importantly, clear human oversight measures.
These are rigorous standards.
Yeah.
But how is the EU actually going to enforce, say, traceability logging on a system developed by a company in California or China?
That's the power of the EU's regulatory reach. They've set a de facto global standard. If you want to deploy a high-risk system and access the massive European market, you must comply with the EU AI Act.
Regardless of where your headquarters are.
It's an unavoidable cost of doing global business in AI, period.
We also need context from major non-Western markets, particularly China, which often seems to prioritize innovation alongside very strict control.
China is a key global player here. Their AI action plan from July 2025 promotes innovation, but also prioritizes strict oversight. This includes draft ethics measures, which require ethics reviews for projects with potential ethical risks.
What about for content creation?
Perhaps most relevant there is the AIGC labeling measures effective September 2025, which explicitly require that content generated by AI must be labeled as such. Transparency is the mandate.
Okay, so given the explosion of both deepfakes and mass-produced synthetic content, organizations can't really rely on traditional trust models anymore, where you just assume a file or an email is authentic.
Precisely. The regulatory environment and the rise of synthetic media mandate a security shift. Enterprises have to adopt what's called a zero-trust informational architecture.
Meaning you trust nothing by default?
You assume external, unaudited information is compromised or suspicious until it's proven otherwise. And they must integrate deepfake detection tools into high-volume media channels.
And these tools are mature now.
They are. They analyze sophisticated irregularities in media, things like unnatural mouth movement that doesn't match the audio or mismatched acoustic signals, to detect manipulation before it ever reaches an end user. So what does this all mean for the big picture? The digital world in 2026, it's really defined by a central paradox.
Which?
We have historic global adoption. Over 6 billion people online. Over 1 billion using AI every month, coupled with this rigorous regulatory and compliance imperative.
So growth meets governance.
Right. And this dual pressure significantly raises the cost and the complexity of operating online for every single business, small or large.
So the battleground is shifting. It's no longer just about getting people online, which LEO satellites are trying to solve.
It's much deeper now.
It's about ensuring that the digitally included have the economic means, the necessary skills like digital literacy, and the regulatory protections to use the internet safely and productively. It's about turning mere access into equitable opportunity.
And here is the provocative thought I want to leave you with, especially considering the massive social media adoption we talked about at the start.
Okay.
Online adults now spend an average of 18.5 hours per week just scrolling feeds across social and video platforms.
That is essentially a full working day devoted just to scrolling. It's staggering.
It is. Yet, despite that explosive attention on social media, search engines remain the #1 source of brand discovery for online adults.
Still, after all this time.
Still #1. And advertisers are following the money. They're spending $352 billion on search ads in 2025. That's nearly $1 billion per day.
So as you navigate this synthetic, regulated, and rapidly growing digital world, consider how your own digital behavior, where you look for information and commercial discovery versus where you spend your time just being entertained, how that aligns with these massive daily advertising priorities.